Hello, everybody. Pastor Randy here. Great to be with you on this great Wednesday. Hope that you are well wherever you are in the world today. I know that a lot of people are dealing with life, dealing with health, dealing with all types of things. I want you to know today you are not alone. We may not know each other personally, not all of us, but I lift you, every single one of you up every day in prayer, and I ask God to bless you and take care of you and meet you right where you are. You know, what an incredible joy it is to be able to bring you not only these messages on a daily basis here and making it simple, but also get to meet a lot of people on the weekends as I am able to have another program on Sunday afternoons at 6:30, which is now streaming live right here on my page called How Does That Affect Me? Where we talk about life. This week on this Sunday's episode will be the topic of unforgiveness. It is something that so many people wrestle with and so many people struggle with. I also have another platform at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights called Unmasking the Truth. And it also streams live right here on my page as well with my friend Avi Klein and David Holliday and my dear friend Dale Wilkes, who has gone into eternity, but he is still with us in spirit. I just wanted to plug those. So you got opportunities, friends, for a variance of information. These daily Bible studies that I do based on Scripture and my weekend life lessons, they are what a blessing to me to be able to have that opportunity. And I pray that something in one of these avenues, if not all three, will be a blessing to you. So I wanted to bring you that as well. It is without a question. It is without a question. We are living in a time that Jesus spoke of. He said that if we followed him, in other words, if we understood the principles of faith and understood the principles of a relationship with him, which is founded and based in Scripture, founded and based in the promises of God, he said we would be hated. Why? It's not for the mere faith principle, or some would even use the word religion. I don't use that word, but some would. That's not what it is. It's the truth component that is hated. And I'm telling you, folks, I have never seen the truth hated more than it is right now. It has never been come against the way that it is right now. Not in our known time, not in our history. It is absolutely despised on every corner. And it is fought like nothing that I have ever seen. I did a video earlier this week that was completely off topic. It was just on my own. It had nothing to do with any of my programs. It was just a video that I put out. Talking about a recent Supreme Court decision to uphold a rule in Texas to where if a heartbeat is detected, an abortion cannot take place. The vitriol, the spite, the flames of hate, the outrage, the hair on fire panic, I've never seen anything like it. Why? Why? Are babies hated that much? No. It's the fact of the truth that once that heart is beating, it's life. And there's no way around that. It is life. Whether it's a baby or whether it's a cat or a bear or a puppy, it doesn't matter. If that heart is beating, it is a life. That truth is hated. It rips my heart out to see the hatred that is spewing over the airwaves, be it television, be it radio, be it social media, whatever, coming from the celebrity world, coming from the political world. I've never seen anything like it. It is truly shameful. When the truth is despised, when the truth is hated, and the truth meaning stuff that makes things better, stuff that makes life quality, when that's hated, when that is attempted to be removed, it is utterly like logically, realistically, and every other kind of way, I get a little emotional about this and sometimes lose my wording. It is like trying to remove the light from a room and have only darkness there. When one is no longer allowed to have a difference of opinion, and we're not talking about even about an argument. We're not talking about having to agree on everything, but we're living in a time to where if we don't agree on everything, or so that it's told, then we're supposed to hate each other. Why? Just because somebody likes a hot dog and somebody else likes a hamburger, it doesn't mean you can't sit down and have a meal at the same table. You just don't share the food. We don't have to hate each other. You know, sports is back on now. The stadiums are full, which I'm so glad to see. You know, all the different things that are happening right now. I of course live here near Tampa, so we've got the Bucks and the Rays and on so and on so. You can cheer for those teams. You can cheer for the ones that play against them. It doesn't matter. You know, the college scene is back on now. You got whether you got you know, the University of Florida, whether you got Clemson or Carolina or Georgia or LSU, it doesn't matter. Cheer to your heart's content. We don't have to hate each other because we don't agree on what our fandom is. But when it comes to the truth, it is absolutely, utterly hated because it represents something bigger than us. It represents something better because it makes life better. It paints a more beautiful picture. It opens better doors. We see how ridiculous it gets, though, when one is grasping for straws in the unwillingness to embrace the truth. We see that in our lesson, and this is where we're going today. We've been talking about the healing of the blind man. The people that knew him, the people that saw him, they had a debate amongst one another if that was really the guy. Well, some said, oh, it's got to be. Others said it couldn't be because they didn't wrap their mind around the fact that a miracle had taken place. Because again, I specifically pointed out this was someone who had never seen. This was not a cure. This was not a wake up from a bad season. This was not the eyes cleared up because they'd taken something and had a temporary, no, they'd never had sight, ever. It is like walking in the darkness always. I'm speaking to this from a spiritual point. And finally, meeting Jesus and having an eye-opening light experience. And so in the debate about who he was, he finally said, hey, it's me. I'm the blind guy. I'm the one that's always been here. I was the beggar, whatever the case. I was the blind guy. So that settled that debate because it came from him. And then they wanted to know how it happened. And he told them. Jesus did it. He told me what to do, and I went. We built our lesson around that concept yesterday. I went. And I asked the question in our title, are you willing to go? We pick up today, we get back to the good old leadership. We get back to the Pharisees, the ones who hated truth more than anybody. That hadn't changed. Our leadership today stands in opposition of the truth more than anybody. They set the tone for it. They set the platform for it. They go on the television shows and argue against things that are absolute truth and factual, absolutely abundant proof to show so. And yet still they pretty much say, are you going to believe your lying eyes? Or are you going to believe my lying mouth? They want to always put a question mark. They want to put speculation behind everything and skepticism behind everything that it just can't be. We see this heart in the Pharisees, in the leadership of the time of Jesus. So it tells us that of course, this being all the ones who were trying to figure out what was going on, what had happened to the blind man. It says they brought him to the Pharisees so they could talk to him. But what were they going to do? They weren't going to talk to him. They were going to interrogate him. And that's what we find And it tells us, and it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Now, what does that tell us? That's exactly where they're going back to. They could care less that here is a literal walking miracle in their presence, someone who had never, ever seen before. From the time of birth, he's standing in their presence with full vision and talking to them, communicating with them, responding to them, having visual expression now because he can see them. But as we'll see, that didn't matter. They said unto him, how did you receive your sight? How did you receive your sight? And he said unto them, and of course he's referencing Jesus, but he hasn't used his name. He put clay upon my eyes, and I washed and do see. Now, you would say, well, wait a minute, that wasn't exactly how the story went. There was a reason he was leaving some parts out, because he was picking up pretty quick, because now he could see. It's like the line in Amazing Grace. I was blind, but now I see. You see, he was literally blind. He couldn't see anything at all. But now he can both see visually, but even greater, he can discern and see spiritually. He saw their hearts because it was displayed in their attitude. It was displayed in their skepticism. It was displayed in their overall negativity. They weren't rejoicing at his victory. They weren't rejoicing at his moment of praise. They wanted to interrogate him. They wanted to know how this happened, why this happened, who, when, where, how, the whole 9 yards. Therefore they said unto him, some of the Pharisees, this man is not of God. Of course, they're speaking of Jesus, because he doesn't keep the Sabbath. But there were others among them who said, well, how could a sinner, in other words, one not of God, how could they do such miracles? And we're told here there was division among them. So again, we get back to the heart of the situation. Blind man is here now. He's with them, and they want to know how in the world did this happen? What happened? They wanted to know what was going on, because they, again, had no concern whatsoever over his healing. They could care less. They were looking for something to hang Jesus on, because they hated him so bad. And the reason goes back to what he stood for, the truth. And the truth exposed them and their hearts. And they wanted that stopped at all cost. It didn't matter what it took, even going to the extreme, which they were more than willing to do. So they were asking him, they were interrogating the blind man, who did this? How did this happen? When did it happen? And then they found their aha moment. Their aha, we got him. We got him. Oh man, we got him. You know, if you ever was a fan of the Dukes of Hazzard back in the 70s and early 80s, Roscoe P. Coltrane, the sheriff, he would finally think that he had the Duke boys in custody, or finally have them within reach, and he'd get all excited and say, I got him, I got him, I got him. That's where they were at. They were just exuberant, because oh man, we finally got the goods on Jesus, because they went back to the old tried and true. Again, remember, they don't ever change their playbook. And when I say they, I reference some even now. They don't change their playbook. They always go back to the same old thing and just hope that somewhere along the way it'll finally work. It'll finally sneak through. The noodle will finally stick to the wall, whatever. We got him. He did it on the Sabbath, because remember, he had healed before, and they claimed, and that the disciples had ate some corn or some wheat buds on the Sabbath, and they were hung up on that. They weren't going to let it go. Again, here a life was made better. A blind man could see. His life was forever changed. They didn't care, because you didn't do it by the rules. You went against what we say. They were overlooking the miracle. They were overlooking a lifelong blind person who can now see, but rather they were so determined to get Jesus. They were so concerned over finding him guilty of anything. It didn't matter what it was. Anything. They were willing to overlook the obvious. You see, they were, at this point, they were actually more blind than the formerly known blind man. Even when he had no sight, he could see better than they could, and they had full vision because they were spiritually blind. They were blinded by hate. They were blinded by pride and arrogance and everything else. And so this former blind man, now he could see visually and spiritually. He could see they were up to no good. He could tell it by their expression, by their negativity and on so. He could tell their, so he answered them, but he left some parts out. There's no way around that. He did. He wasn't being deceptive and he wasn't trying to be dishonest. He just wasn't going to answer their question the way they wanted it because they were looking for something to snag Jesus on. And he picked up on that really quick because he understood and appreciated what miracle had happened. He embraced that gift from God. So he left out the details like how Jesus made the clay, with his saliva, spittle, whatever the case. He left some of those little details out. And he said, he made the clay, anointed my eyes. He told me to go wash. And that's what I did. And everything worked fine. Everything worked good. He said, this is what happened. He put the clay on my eyes. I washed. And now I see. That was true. That was exactly what happened. That was exactly what happened. So now we see this division among the group. As you've heard me say before, and it's just an old standard saying, I guess. Certainly we use it a lot in law enforcement. There's no honor among thieves. In other words, when one tries to get the upper hand on the other, or when one disagrees with the other, they begin to start having divisions, and it falls apart. And they begin to even lose sight of their own vision in the fact that they wanted to get Jesus so bad, they became blinded by that to the point they didn't even agree with each other. Because one said, well, wait a minute, this guy can't possibly be of God, because he continues to do stuff on the Sabbath. They considered this a violation of keep the Sabbath holy, rest on the Sabbath, don't do anything. They took that to the nth degree of literalcy, and they're saying he's continually violating this, so he can't possibly be of God. And yet still, though, there were others that said, hold on, wait a minute. How could he do such things if indeed he's a sinner, if he is not of God? And it says here in the scripture, and there was division among them. So as we continue on, we look just a little bit more here in verse 17. It says, they said unto the blind man, what do you say of him who has opened your eyes? And the blind man said, he is a prophet. That was a high title. Clearly meant this guy is the real deal. He is Son of God. But again, we go back to the Pharisees' own words. If you've been following along with me in this study from chapter 1, verse 1, if you go back to chapter 3 and the conversation in the first 8 or 10 verses that Jesus was having with Nicodemus, Nicodemus began their conversation by saying, we, in the plural. Remember, in that first verse, it said Nicodemus, a Pharisee. He was one of them. We know. It all ties together, folks. It all ties together, and it all goes back to the same problem. The hardened heart, the unwillingness, the closed off pride, arrogance, hatred, all the things it comes back to the matter of the heart. That's where it all stems from. They asked this question, what is your opinion of Jesus? the one who opened your eyes? And he simply said, he is a prophet. Again, this is a title of great honor. In other words, the blind man recognized the miracle of God. What is the significance of that? They were supposed to be men of God. They were supposed to be ministers of God. They were supposed to be the highest of the high, not in an arrogant, pious way, but in a moral character way, in a spiritual manner of this person walks with God. This person communes with God. This person hears from God and is able to give spiritual value into one's life, is able to give spiritual account and advice and on so and on so and on so, because they're the guy. Many people put pastors and prophets and teachers into that category. Some rightfully so and some not. I tend to always try to make sure people never put us on a pedestal. We are just as fallible as anybody else. And anybody who claims to not be, and I know there are certain beliefs and religious systems who place their leader in a place of infallibility that they can't make a mistake, that is a lie. And I'll say that with no apology. Because as long as you're human, you are capable of messing up. You try not to. You try to walk with God. You try to be the very best that you can. But I assure you, it is but for the grace of God that you maintain where you are. It is not because you are incapable of making that fall. This man recognized the miracle of God. He could see now, both visibly and spiritually. But those who were appointed and anointed and every other kind of way in people's eyes that were supposed to be the leaders of their time, they couldn't see at all. They actually had a stronger and deeper level of blindness than the actual blind guy, because their hearts were covered in darkness. Their minds were not receptive to anything that went against what they said. They hated the truth. And as we will see in our lesson tomorrow, Lord willing, that we pick up, this went on to the point to where now they began to even call into question whether he was actually really blind or not. He was faking it for all these years, to the point they would go to his mom and dad. It just didn't stop because they refused to accept the truth, even though it was standing right in front of them. Many of you right now, if you will be honest, you say, Pastor Andy, that sounds like the last 2 or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years or whatever it is of the news cycle. The truth is standing right in front of you, yet still someone's telling me I can't believe it, or that that's not true, or you're a conspiracy nut, or whatever the case. Again, demeaning the truth, belittling the truth, saying it doesn't exist. Some have even gone as far as to say there is no such thing as the truth. That's a lie. And we know exactly where it comes from. Jesus addressed that with these very Pharisees. He said, you are of your father, the devil, the father of lies. He's not going anywhere, friends. He's just got a new group of Pharisees that he's working with. The hatred of the truth does not make the truth be untrue. Let the light guide you. Let your relationship with Christ keep your eyes open. Don't get blinded by the darkness. God bless you. Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow right here for Making It Simple. You take care.